What's good, folks? And welcome to another episode of Cover One Football Weekly, presented by the Cover One Sports Network. I'm one of your three hosts this evening on this episode of Cover One Football Weekly. Anthony Prohaska, joined to the, I was going to say to my, no, not to my right, to my left, to my right on screen, but I don't know why. I don't know why I get myself into this trap ever. Joined by Kendall Mirsky up top with me and Mr. Russell Brown solo down low after we had to take a bit of a break last week. Some real life complications, nothing crazy, got involved for myself and Kendall and Russ, and us being unable to nail down an episode of Cover One Football Weekly last week. But we're back this week after week 11, and as week 11 is wrapping up and winding down, and we've had a lot of conversation on this show, really starting at early on, but especially as the season has gone through, in terms of trying to define what teams are real, what teams are not. We've had a lot of discussion about the NFC and trying to figure out like who's a good football team, who's a bad football team. The AFC was kind of like our safe haven. It felt like, okay, we know who's a good football team here. We know who the bad football teams are. We know how the divisions are going to go. Everything will be okay. And the last several weeks, a lot of it having to do with the Buffalo Bills. The AFC has just become this jumbled mess in a good way, in terms of some teams starting to separate from the pack, some teams kind of creeping back up into playoff contention. And with some of the results and performances, I think that's the more important piece for us here in this episode. It is the performances of these teams, not so much just about the record, but who these teams are individually and what that can mean for the entire rest of the year. That's what we're operating on in this episode of Cover One Football Weekly. Again, trying to make sense out of the AFC. We're going to look at it. Who are the top teams? Are they separated by tier? Is there one team or two teams or however many that are cut above everyone else? How is this playoff picture starting to shape up? What we can expect from the multitude of teams involved in the AFC playoff picture going forward. There's a lot to sort through. It's very messy. Russ, we'll start with you down at the bottom. Is there any one team that you think stands a cut above everyone else? Is there one or two or three teams? How do you sort out the top of the AFC when you're looking at what this conference is right now?
Well, first and foremost, I want to just say you guys look phenomenal today. I will not be doing the video portion of the show, being that I am in a bedroom that's got boxes and clothes, and we're just unpacking our lives over here. But
a lot of busy real life stuff for you over there. We appreciate you even taking the time to join us tonight in the hectic chaos that is moving / renovations for the new home for you, which is also awesome. Very congratulations. We DM'd a bit for your awesome work. You've been crushing it. So well done.
Yeah, thanks. Down to the last room and all that fun stuff, which we can talk offline or whatever. But I will say my son wanted to play me in NHL, and we've been doing the NHL threes type deal. It's like the 3-on-3.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's fun as hell.
Just annihilating them. Just absolutely annihilating them. Just
let him know what the world is cold and cruel, and you need to prepare him for that by demolishing him in NHL. Set him up for success. I like it.
Yep. And then when you play Madden against him, he'll audible and give everybody double slants across the whole field, and it's a mess. But So for the AFC, I mean, look, you can't overlook Kansas City, right? I mean, just the way it's kind of feeling, they're kind of inching their way up to the top of the AFC, the team that I would feel most comfortable if I had to make a bet today of who would probably go to the Super Bowl. It would probably be them out of that side. And the reason why I'm not picking Buffalo isn't because they can't score, isn't because of the defense. It's honestly the elbow of Josh Allen. Is this thing going to hold up for the rest of the season and through the playoffs? I don't know. I feel like at times with Josh, he's missing some throws that earlier in the year he would have been making. And I don't feel like, you look at them against the Vikings, obviously the fumble at the end of the game, that's just tragic last week. And then this week against the Browns, sure, you win. But again, he did what he had to do to win, but it's not like the Josh Allen that we've been seeing where he was lighting the world on fire, 300 plus yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns. It just feels different. And maybe that's making me hesitant, and maybe that'll bite me. And I hope it does, because I would love to see the Bills back in the Super Bowl. But Kansas City is certainly that team. And a lot of it, obviously goes to Pat Mahomes. But young defensive players that they have in their secondary, I mean, they've lost some players in their secondary over the years. But, Snead has done a really good job. Jalen Watson's done a really good job. Fenton has done a really good job. Like these guys aren't, lockdown corners, but they're feasible and they're doing a good enough job. And I just look at them at that 7-2 and I'm like, hey, they really stand out as kind of that one team that could really get it going. Tennessee, I don't think this is a team that's probably going to make the run that their fan base probably wants them to do, but they're just kind of a gritty, grindy team, and they somehow have 7 wins with Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis, that timeshare at quarterback. And Derrick Henry started a little bit slow this year, really starting to catch his groove. Their defense is playing really well.
They should have beaten Kansas City. They had them. They easily could be atop the entire AFC.
Yeah, no, and I mean, through 10 games, Derrick Henry's over 1,000 yards already, 10 touchdowns. I mean, he's getting 100 yards and a touchdown a game pretty much. Like he's a dude. The passing game is very skeptical. Treylon Burks had a big game against Green Bay, so maybe that's something that's going to kind of get it going. But you can't run on this team. Roger McCreary looks like a dude that I know Anthony and we both really liked a lot. I think he's certainly looking like a dude. Jeffrey Simmons is a dude. Christian Fulton was one of my guys who I liked actually over Jeff Okudah quite a bit, and kind of got ridiculed for it. And Okudah's bouncing back really well, but Fulton looks okay.
Yeah.
They've got the defensive players, and defense wins championships. A lot of people don't believe that method anymore. Defense winning championships, being able to run the football, they can do both those things. But the big thing with Tennessee, when they're in those tight spots, what kind of happens? Are they going to be able to throw out of them? We'll see. And then just lastly, I will say, I hate doing this, but the Miami Dolphins, this team, they've won 4 in a row. I don't care who they're playing against. They seem to be able to score at any given time. I was watching a thing like, mic'd up with Tua last year with Brian Flores.
Oh, versus him with McDaniel. Yeah.
And just the difference it is. I mean, it just seemed like very much like with Flores, it was like, saluting, yes, sir, no, sir, didn't want to make a mistake. And here he's kind of loose and relaxed and calling his coach boss and stuff like that. Like, that's pretty cool to see. And it's, I'm rooting for Tua, obviously. The injuries kind of piled up this year. That injury was really scary. The injuries have kind of piled up over the course of his career, but him and Tyreek Hill, that's a legit thing. And Jalen Waddle as well. And I mean, that's a lot of people probably won't talk about it, but that might be the best duo as far as wide receivers in the NFL go. I mean, when you're talking overall production, Hill and Waddle, I mean, those guys they fly, they get open. So I just think with Miami, the way that they're able to run the football, they bring Jeff Wilson, who was basically dead in San Francisco. He's become efficient there.
Yeah.
They'll have to figure things out defensively, but they got a lot of players that I've really liked over the years throughout the draft process, me being the draft guy. Jevin Holland, Christian Wilkins, Eric Rowe, Xavier Howard, just a couple of guys that I've really liked. Zach Zeeler is a dude from Ferris State, kind of locally here.
Great year.
He's having a great year. Yeah. So, I mean, they're just, I don't know. They're a fun team. I know that kind of irks Bills fans, but they're a fun team. And I just think between those kind of 3-4 teams, Bills, Titans, Dolphins, Chiefs, I think that's probably the final 4 if I had to write it up today.
It's such a weird dynamic at the top there. Again, just because I feel like every team at the top potentially has like vulnerabilities or warts or deficiencies, but all of them have strengths that they can lean into. Russ, I love the pieces you mentioned about Miami. I was a big Mike McDaniel guy these past couple of years. And then although I think I was listening to The Athletic, and I forget who Robert Mays was talking to. With Pierre Garcon. And he was talking about Mike McDaniel and just the respect that the players have for Mike McDaniel and how much he knows and all this type of stuff. And then you put it together with the offenses that he's been a part of. And I had faith in him coming into this year being an architect for that offense. And then you've got, I don't think it's any question. I think Hill and Waddle are the most dynamic, threatening wide receiver duo in the entire NFL because of the speed and route running prowess. And then you've got Tua, who I still think he leaves some meat on the bone when it comes to his throws, but that's fine because the design is so good from McDaniel, and then the athleticism and speed from Hill and Waddle kind of balance out and make up, like, oh, you threw this behind me a little bit. That's cool. I'll just settle down and catch it and then still get like 10 yards after the catch. And we just keep on rolling. And then again,
Yeah.
you get their running game. I love the point that you mentioned that too. You grab Raheem Mostert and you grab Jeff Wilson. And what are those two running backs? What are they known for? Oh, being really good in these zone schemes from the Kyle Shanahan world. Oh, cool. Where does Mike McDaniel come from? Oh, the Kyle Shanahan world. Oh, cool. Look at the fits they have. Boom. Like, they have set themselves up for success. And then, yeah, Javon Holland was an emerging star last year. He's only increased that value and wealth to his name this year. They're exciting. They've got some pieces. Tennessee is a real intriguing one for me.
Yeah.
I love what they've done defensively. Like, their simulated pressure package last year was something I studied a lot in this offseason coming into this year. And they've just continued to do it. The way they mix up coverages on the back end, the way they disguise things up front, whether it's simulated or creepers, depending on how you define it. And it all centers around, Jeffrey Simmons being a monster. They lose Harold Landry and you're thinking, oh, cool, they're done. No, they just keep on trucking. Bud Dupree goes down at different times in different games. They just keep on trucking. And the linchpin up there has been Jeffrey Simmons just being a monster. And they get contributions from guys like Danico Autry. We're seeing David Long, physical, blitzing, coming forward like a hammer and a tank. He functions well in coverage. He's fast, sideline to sideline. McCreary is sick. Kevin Byard, like, there's so much to like for the identity of that team offensively and defensively. And then again, you play good defense, you run the ball, that travels. For me, Kansas City is still at the top. We're going to have a discussion about the Buffalo Bills shortly as we continue to move forward. But Kendall, when you're looking at the class of the AFC, is it a top one? Is it a top 2 or 3 or 4? Is there anyone that really has separated themselves? How do you view, the top tier or tiers of the AFC when you're looking at, this conference right now?
I do think that Kansas City is in a tier with just themselves. I think they're alone there, but I think the group behind them is pretty dense, and I think those teams can still compete with the Chiefs, and it's not like, oh, you put them up against the Chiefs in 10 games, they're only winning 1. I think a lot of these teams in this second tier, I think they could win 4, maybe 5 of those games, and it would be a pretty close series type of things. But I think KC is up top. Maybe they've shown a couple of cracks, without Hill in the offense and those young guys in the secondary. Sure, but like, they're still the most consistent team in this conference, and they really don't show a whole lot of wavering in that regard. The second tier for me would have to include Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, and then, like, I want to keep Tennessee in there.
I just don't believe in them enough to keep them there.
My issue with Tennessee is how dependent how dependent I think they are on game script. If they don't get stops early, if they don't get ahead early, and they have to win with the passing game, if they have to win out of certain formations and personnel groups that they're not comfortable operating out of, I don't know what their chances are if they have to scrape from behind in a lot of games. So that's my bigger concern. Also, like, looking at their schedule, I think they have the most like 50-50 toss-up games compared to a lot of the other teams in this tier. So I don't even know. As time tells, obviously Cream rises to the top, and I think they're going to be a team that kind of just, they sneak into the top 4 seeds because a division leader has to be a top 4 seed. And I think they're winning that division despite how good the Colts look today. I think it's KC alone, though. I like what Russ said on Miami. I like what you said on Miami. Sure, Bills fans don't want to hear it, but Miami is legit. Like, there is a very serious conversation to be had about who's winning the AFC East. It is not a done deal for anyone. It is a very close race. And given how New England versus New York went today, I don't think they're going to be the ones fighting for it. But I think Miami and Buffalo have equal claims to it. And it's going to be really an epic showdown at the end of the season. But the AFC is murky. And we can, the back end fighting for the wild card, we could have a whole conversation on just who's going to fit into that wild card area. Yeah. It's absolutely wild. Because like I said, it's either going to be Buffalo or Miami. I think one of those two teams is going to secure a wild card spot, but then the other two, it's really up for grabs.
Yeah. And it could really be up for grabs between the entire AFC East, if we're going to be honest. I mean,
it could.
I said it 2 weeks ago about the Jets. The Jets are kind of I think they're starting to kind of fall apart and collapse. Zach Wilson just not. We talked about him, I think, not the last show, but the previous show, and we like, he's just not looking good, and he's making some questionable calls on the field, off the field, in the pressers. He's making some questionable calls. Yeah. It's not looking good from that aspect. But beyond that, my question for you guys was regarding the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of ourselves here, but what do we make of this Chiefs running game? Like, I know they don't really need it because they obviously have Pat Mahomes, but they've basically just like 187 Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Makes no sense at all. You've got Isaiah from Rutgers who looks fine, but like I don't understand it. Jerick McKinnon is essentially a corpse, and he's getting dinged up, and like he's a good pass catching option for them out of the backfield. Mm. And like I don't know what to think of them. And I honestly think here in the middle part of this season, they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Yeah. But I think when they get to the playoffs, they are really going to start relying on Clyde Edwards-Helaire again. And he's going to be part of the reason to why they make a push, because he's got the experience. He's still young. He's still a good player. It just doesn't make sense to me why like they hate him. It's almost like the same way the Jets view Michael Carter. They just we got to add somebody into the mix for no reason at all.
I like that comparison.
It makes no sense.
Oh, you know what? I want to answer that question. I like it, but we got to stop because we got super chat and then we got a question that came with it. So very much, very many thanks to Jim for 1 for being here, 2 for the super chat and the donation, 3 for the comment. Jim, well, actually, I should say question. So Jim's got a question. He says, well, actually, not even a question. It's more of a demand. Jim says, pick a rookie, which has been quiet up to now, which will emerge in the last half of the season. Oof. Ooh, oh, you know what's funny? And then Sarah came through in the comments and said, does James Cook count as having been quiet? I don't want to stay Bills centric for the answer. That was one that immediately came to my mind.
Same.
I just see him continuing to earn touches for this team. And I put a tweet out earlier. Kendall, you interacted with it on Twitter. Like, he just does something different for the Bills offense. It just, every time he gets the ball, that speed and that burst allows the offensive line to hang on to blocks less and have to be less precise. I think he carves out more of a role as this team goes forward for the Buffalo Bills. One that's for me, and maybe this is low-hanging fruit because he's made noise a little bit the last couple of weeks. I'm going to go with Christian Watson for the Packers. I liked the pick. I knew he was limited in terms of polish for a prospect, right? He's coming out of North Dakota State, and a lot of the highlights that you're seeing from him, it's these, jet sweeps and reverses and deep shots where it's just like, okay, cool, just go be the fastest guy in the field and run by everybody. That's not sustainable in the NFL. But the last several weeks, it kind of has been. Like, he's just the fastest guy in the field by a lot. What really got me, the post-game presser after the Dallas game, maybe after the Tennessee, no, after the Dallas game. And he's talking about all the touchdowns that he had and what he did on the different touchdowns. And he's talking about, what coverage he saw and how he's leveraging the defender and where he's supposed to find space and what the concept is based off of the coverage and based off of the look. He's a lot smarter than I knew. And you put it together with that real skill set. And I think more importantly, the fit in that offense. I think the Green Bay Packers are pretty much dead in the water. But as they start to go forward, especially with the injury to Dubs and just how this offense has been stuck in the mud a bit, I think Watson continues to make noise. Again, I think a lot of the reason why he's been quiet up until now, well, he's banged a little bit the last couple of weeks, but a lot of it was just injury and him not being there. And as he's healthy, Rodgers needs that deep threat. His speed is very real. I think Christian Watson continues to have, I don't think he's going to keep getting like a touchdown a game, but I think you could continue to see like 4 to 6 catches a game for anywhere from like 80 to 105 yards and a touchdown sprinkled in. And Rodgers needs somebody to trust, he's starting to earn that a little bit. Granted, as long as he doesn't turn, go full CM Punk and just peace out on everybody. I knew you'd like that, Russ. Christian Watson is, again, I believed in him coming into the year, and I also think Treylon Burks could fit into that as well. Been out since week 4, starting to build a little rapport with Tannehill. If they have to lean on the pass in any degree, like he fits the A.J. Brown role. I'm really looking at those 2 wide receivers in terms of, emerging, depending on how you define it in the last half of this season here.
I really want to be fun and say Desmond Ridder, but the Falcons keep winning. and it makes it look less and less.
I thought
likely.
Mariota got hurt on the touchdown run today.
Same.
He didn't get up right away, and I was like, "Oh, here comes Ritter!" But then Mariota just popped right back up.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I kind of have to say James Cook in a sense because he has been limited. I mean, you look at the first half of the season, and the guy just it was clear the coaching staff just didn't trust him yet. There was just a lack of confidence either with himself and how he plays football at this level, or just the coaching staff having trust in him. So either way, that has since been overcome, and he has gotten a lot more carries relative to how many carries running backs get in the Bills offense. He's really done well with those opportunities, and he keeps creating explosive plays week after week. So it's hard to ignore. I don't know how many carries he's really going to merit in this offense, given maybe 22 a game for running backs, and you're splitting that with Motor. So it's going to be interesting to see how much volume he actually demands. But I think with how explosive the offense can be, utilizing running backs as pass catchers or just, traditionally as a running back, I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to get touches in both areas of the offense and create explosives either way. So I think he's going to be efficient as the season continues, but it's really tough to forecast usage.
That's fair. Russ, what do you got? Any rookie on your mind that you think will emerge in the last half of the year that's been quiet up until now?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have kind of taken all the good guys. I wanted to I'm like cheating because he's not being talked about enough, I don't think, for kind of a top rookie, and that is Chris Olave. Just when you look at overall what he's been able to
Very fair.
do,
good game again today.
Another good game today, and he's in top 15 in receiving targets, receiving yards, the whole nine there. He's crushing it. 46 receptions, 658 yards. So he's sneaky good, but I feel like enough people know about it. But I'll talk about a guy I haven't talked about since a couple weeks back, and that's Cade Otton, the tight end out of the Tampa Bay.
Ooh, good pick.
I love this pick.
Starting to just put it together week in and week out, as the Bucs more than likely make it into the playoffs because of the terrible division that they're in. It wouldn't surprise me if this guy is part of that success and part of that push. Just looking at the season, 35 targets. He's really only got going since the beginning of October. So through a month and a half of football, you're essentially talking about 35 targets, 26 receptions, just under 300 yards, a touchdown. And he had his first touchdown 2 weeks ago against the Rams. They're on that bye this week, but I think he's really going to start putting it 1 week after the other. And as they make that playoff push, I think Cade Otton could be somebody that ends up with actually, close to 50 receptions and probably close to 600 yards or so, and potentially maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns. And that's really good for a rookie tight end that was coming off of an injury and, really wasn't being talked about too much in an offense that's really featured about, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and obviously Tom Brady.
Yeah. Oh, very good pick. I like that. And big shout out to Jim for the super chat and the donation and for being here and for a really good question that got us thinking and our brains working a little bit. So
now
like
answer my Clyde question.
I would say we'll come back, so that's fair. I was gonna kick it to Kendall first.
Yeah, I want this. I love Pacheco.
I was gonna say because
like
Kendall
Pacheco.
loves Pacheco, so you do you first.
No, I think the big thing is the Chiefs aren't a running offense. And it's not that Clyde can't run the football. It's not that he can't be a featured back, but obviously Pacheco adds that physical element that Clyde can't, at least to that extent.
The speed to power.
Speed to power is literally Pacheco's entire game. He doesn't have a ton of wiggle, but he's got a lot of juice. It's very quick in and out of his cuts. They're not necessarily cuts to make you miss. They're just kind of cuts to change angles. He's very powerful, like you said, but I think as you get into the playoffs, you have to be able to defend the run and run the football. Teams are built to stop the pass in this league. And you look at what happened to the Vikings today, and there was just no way that they were going to come back against the Cowboys because the Cowboys have an amazing pass rush. And if you know that the other team is going to be passing time and time again, those pass rushers pin their ears back and they get after the quarterback. If you have a run game to mitigate that, kind of like we've seen, I'm going all over the place with my comparisons. Like we've seen with the Bengals, like last week when they don't have Jamar Chase, a way to help out that offensive line and lack of weapons, whatever it may be on offense, and all your struggles you're having in the passing game, you slow down those pass rushers by running the ball, make them respect their run fits and their gap integrity and all that stuff. So I think the Chiefs will have to pivot to that at some point in their season. And I don't know if this necessarily means it can't be Clyde, but what I do think is they need to give some reps and some meaningful reps to Pacheco so they can lean on the entire stable of running backs as you get into the thick and thin of things of the winter in the NFL.
Oh, I was just gonna be mean to Kendall, be like, Pacheco sucks.
He's the worst. He fumbled last week. He sucks.
He's done. I like Pacheco. Here's my thought with it, and why I'm leaning Pacheco more than CEH. If push comes to shove, I'll take the guy that adds more juice to the lineup, and I think that's Pacheco, in spades. But with this offense, the Chiefs' offense. On the year, 68% zone run of an offense, and you combine that with what kind of offensive line they are and the displacement they can create with double teams up front. Their movement isn't bad. I don't want to say they're not built for gap runs, but they're. I mean, with Tooney and Humphrey and Smith and Orlando Brown, and I know right tackle's been somewhat of a vulnerability with what Wiley has been. Just give me inside zone or duo all day and just give Pacheco a crease and then let him go. And that's, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, that's all I want, because I don't need the running game to be the focus. Like we've all said, just give me 4 to 6 yards a clip. And with the displacement that offensive line can create and Pacheco's ability to get going in a hurry and just put his foot on the ground.
Contact.
Correct. That's exactly it. So all you have to do is create the slightest opening and he's going to get yardage. Or if a defender isn't form-fitting up that tackle, right, and he's able to get a shoulder on a shoulder, he can fall forward or run through that arm tackle or run through that shoulder. You're creating more yards after contact. Now, okay, cool. A 4-yard game becomes a 5-yard game. 5 becomes 6 or 7. Or because he has that juice, a 5-yard game becomes a 25-yard house call, and so on and so forth. And that's where I think the pendulum swings to Pacheco for me. The identity of who what this running game is combined with who the offensive line is. I like CEH. I liked him at LSU. I still like him now, but I think based on the identity of the Chiefs offense, what they need, what they have, I would lean Pacheco because of that speed piece, the yards after contact ability, and then what the identity of the offensive line and running game is. And honestly, that's a scary thing. Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of Bills Mafia was casting aside the Kadarius Toney trade. And I get it. He hasn't played a ton. I saw that eyebrow raise, Kendall. He hasn't played a ton. He hasn't been on the field. I get the reasons to downplay it, but if he's good to go, which it looks like he is mentally and physically, you have the man-beating wide receiver that you haven't had, and you inject him into the offense with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and a bunch of good other supporting pieces, even though Juju's banged up and Hardman's banged up. But then you had another guy like Pacheco, and all of a sudden you've got juice and athleticism built into that offense again. So I would lean Pacheco. And as a person who looks at the league objectively, that's my thought. But then also as a Bills fan, who would I rather see on the field, Pacheco or CEH? I'd rather see CEH, which makes me think that Pacheco is the better guy for that offense because I'd rather not see him on the field. He scares me a bit because of that speed, because of that speed to power. Stupid Chiefs.
That's fair. Well, so one team. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Do your thing. I was just pulling up a comment while you were speaking.
Yeah, no, because we're letting these late games kind of wrap up. It's finally done for the day, but outside of Chiefs and Chargers, but the Bengals escape Pittsburgh. We didn't talk about them as a team in the AFC really. They're 6-4, started really slow, looked almost like they are on the Rams hangover, and they've kind of emerged here with maybe the Ravens. Are we thinking anything between the Ravens and Bengals as an AFC North team that's going to contend, make a push into the, obviously the wild card, second round, third? What are we thinking here between one of those two teams? Because I don't think we can count on the Browns, and I don't think we can count on the Steelers, obviously. But and I got another question too with the Browns. But just between the Bengals and the Ravens,
okay,
there's so many questions in the AFC.
Are the Bengals? That's why we're doing this show,
right? Are the Bengals a legit team? They're winning, and they're doing it without Jamar Chase,
right?
Oh, did anybody feel feel froggy like they want to go first? Because I'll go first.
Yeah, I got it. I think
Ooh, tough guy Kendall. in the room.
yeah,
Okay,
no,
go ahead.
I'm all over it. I'm all over it.
No,
You
shut
got
up,
it.
Anthony. I got it. Okay, you do your dog.
No, I think I'd have at this moment, I'd have the Bengals as the last team in. I don't think they're gonna win the North. Despite how weird it is for the literally perfect timing, how the Ravens played today and like what it looks like for them to win some games and how weird that can be. It's a little off-putting to some people, but the fact that they can win the way they're winning without their weapons fully healthy, like Andrews is kind of a shell of himself at the moment. They still don't have Bateman. So it's like they're really struggling if they have to pass the football right now. It's Demarcus Robinson. And I mean, if he's your wide receiver one, I think you should know what's going on.
You're in great shape.
And to be fair, he actually played well. But
yeah, he had like 128 receiving yards today.
Yeah. So like they're keeping afloat. So they're a team that is only going to get better and more potent on offense. And then obviously they added Roquan Smith to their defense. So, and I mean, we've been believers in what they've done via the draft and free agency and everything to improve their defense. So that's a very real thing. It's just going to be how much more potent can their offense get? Can it get more efficient? Can they get on the same page? Like all these things kind of need to click, but I believe more in that than kind of the roller coaster that is the Bengals at times. And I think the Bengals are they're a very talented team. I think they're probably top 4 talent-wise in the AFC, but they don't play like it all the time. And I think a lot of that does come back to, you talk about it a lot, Anthony, their predictability with their play calling and some of their sets and the way their plays look pre-snap, stuff like that. But then just flat up, just the offensive line and how it can really get them into trouble with, if they want to go pass happy, which they seem to want to do a lot of the time, especially when Chase is in, they got to depend on that offensive line holding up. And it doesn't, not enough. And obviously today against the Steelers is like, it's a really tough test. It's a great front four, a team that doesn't need to send more than 4 to create pressure. But I mean, if you can't protect against 4 pass rushers and you can't give your guy, 3.5 seconds, it's going to be tough to pass in this league. So that's kind of what it always comes back to with the Bengals. It's just like, can they protect Burrow? And until they can, it's always going to be a talking point with them, but they're just a little too inconsistent to say that they're going to win the AFC North for my liking, but they're too talented to miss out on the playoffs, in my opinion.
The Bengals are an enigma of a team for me. Like even last year, the majority of what they were doing on offense wasn't, and I don't want to use it to knock Zach Taylor or knock Burrow or anything they were doing. Like a lot of what they were doing is just like running 9-8-9. And then Burrow's just like, okay, cool. Whoever has the one-on-one opportunity is where I'm throwing the ball. Okay, it's either going to be Higgins or Chase. Okay, cool. I'm throwing it up and it works. Like they are, and I mean this in like a good way, like they remind me of like a 3-point shooting offense where if they're hitting them, you're done. And it's the end of the first quarter and you're down 20 and you're just like, what the hell happened? Or you're the 3-point shooting team and you're down by like 12 because you're 1 of 9 from 3 in the first quarter. And it's just like, you got to ride that wave and ride that sustainability piece that is kind of unsustainable. And then you mix in the offensive line piece. That's the biggest thing for me. Like I have questions about this offensive line still and whether or not they can protect Joe Burrow. Like that grouping scares me. And I think it has the ability to hold them back. Very similar to, I think the Bills offensive line is better than the Bengals, but I have the same thoughts about the Bills. Like my worry was like, okay, this offensive line, if it's bad, can hold back the entire offense. That's what you're seeing from the Bengals. It angers me. And granted, they addressed it to a degree, right? Like you have Jonah Williams coming back this year and they did make free agency acquisitions, but you have a ton of money in general. And then even more because Chase is on his rookie deal and Burrow's on his rookie deal and Higgins is on his rookie deal. You're not paying anyone really on this entire team. And then you've got a couple sweet guys on defense, right? You pay Hendrickson, but then you have to franchise tag Jesse Bates. Maybe you don't think he's worth the money. You just went to the Super Bowl. There's no reason why your offensive line should be an issue. Like you should have gone for friggin' broke and just tried to do everything. And maybe the players they brought in they thought that was them going for broke.
Yeah, they thought it was Lyle Collins, and that would be the Band-Aid.
And that's it. Fine. And you're thinking, well, we're going to get Jonah Williams too. Like everything's going to be okay. But it has not been that. They've been awful, and they've gotten better. They haven't been as bad as they were in the beginning of the year. But that offensive line is just too inconsistent. And I also don't holistically believe in Zach Taylor, although he has gotten better a bit in terms of design and how they run the football and not being predictable in terms of under center versus shotgun. So, and being like, oh, cool, they're under center. It's going to be a run 100% of the time because that's what they are. They've gotten a little better with that. I just don't believe enough in the offensive line to think they'll win the North. But I do think like if you told me the Bengals don't make the playoffs, I'd be like, okay. If you told me the Bengals went to the Super Bowl again, I'd also be like, okay.
Exactly. Like, that's the kind of variance they play with.
That's exactly it. They have a high variance, and I don't know what to predict with them. If we're shifting to the other team, Russ, that you mentioned about, if the Baltimore Ravens can get healthy, I still think the Ravens are one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. But you have to see, like, Ronnie Stanley hasn't been great coming back.
Got injured again today.
Yes, he did. Also got wrecked on a spin move by Brian Burns. Dobbins up and down with his health. Bateman goes down at a position they could not afford to have an injury with. Marcus Williams goes down. Like, they just cannot seem to get out of their own way with injuries. And I'm at the point where I don't think it's like a bad luck type of thing. Like, I don't know if it's the way they practice or the type of players that they have or their treatment regimen or their workout habits or like what their team physicians issue. I don't know, but like dudes just seem to go down left and right. If they are healthy, I think this is the team that can make noise. I know the passing game isn't ideal, but if you're rolling into a playoff game healthy and you've got Mark Andrews as your number one and Rashad Bateman's your number two, sprinkled in with Duvernay and Demarcus Robinson, but all of that is secondary to the arguably the most dangerous individual weapon in the NFL in Lamar Jackson and the most unicorn of a rushing attack. And then again, if they're healthier on defense, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, like Tyus Bowser came back and he's providing some juice and you get to work him in with Campbell and Jones and Odafe Owe. And now you've got Roquan Smith who can do everything, which allows Patrick Queen to come forward and blitz like a maniac, which is really what he wants to do. He doesn't want to drop back. He wants to come forward. And if you can get back to that three safety grouping of Chuck Clark, Marcus Williams, and Kyle Hamilton, and then you've got Humphrey and Peters, if Jalen Armour Davis can come back, like if healthy, I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC North. They just can't seem to get out of their own way when it comes to health. And again, I'm at the point where I don't think it's bad luck. Like I think there's something in the water there and they just keep getting banged up left and right. And then again, you pair that with the Bengals variants who I think the Bengals are genuinely like the biggest enigma in the NFL. And I think that's like how I said it. I'm not just like patting myself. Like I think that's the best way to put it. Like if they missed out on the playoffs, I'd be like, oh, cool. If they made the Super Bowl, I'd be like, oh, cool. Like I don't know what to make of this team.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you there with the Ravens. I mean, the injuries have just piled up. Ronnie Stanley went down today with an ankle injury, same ankle that he needed surgery on 2-3 years ago. And, it was one of those kind of freak plays. He got rolled up on by Lamar Jackson, who was getting sacked. And then, Kyle Hamilton, he hurt his knee. So now there's some question marks as far as, what's his status going to be moving forward. Fortunately for Baltimore, they've got a very favorable schedule down the stretch here. So I think they're obviously going to make the playoffs, especially over, over the next 6 out of 7 games, really being, I don't want to say cakewalks because nothing's a cakewalk, but Broncos, Steelers, Jags, Browns, Falcons, Steelers. I mean, you end the season against the Bengals. It sounds pretty promising. Whereas you have the Bengals, they got the Titans and the Chiefs back-to-back weeks coming up. The Browns at Tampa, at New England, the Bills, and they end against the Ravens. So, certainly seems like the Ravens are probably going to walk away with the AFC North, just the way it looks on paper. But crazier things have happened. But you mentioned great points here. You're talking about the wide receiver group. I mean, Bateman, I think he's on IR. I think he's done for the year with the foot injury.
So he should be able to come back. It's just a matter of if when they put him so they said he'd be out for longer than expected. He suffered a setback with that foot, but he is expected to return at some point, but it is a question mark of when.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, you throw in J.K. Dobbins in the mix. When's he coming back? Gus Edwards was out today. There's just the run game is they're going to eventually run out of weapons out of that backfield. I mean, at
Kenyon Drake is the truth. Just give it to Drake.
That's what it
they
seems
don't want
like.
to.
Right. So, I don't know. They're just such an interesting team, and I think obviously the offense is just what's going to set them back because Lamar can be, as efficient as you need him to be. He can make plays happen with his feet. He's going to throw for some touchdowns here and there. But if he does have a turnover, like an interception and a fumble, which we've seen in the playoffs, there's just not enough firepower for me to buy into the fact that they're going to recover from that turnover in a playoff game. And that's where I'm very skeptical. Whereas I think with the Bengals, that's a high-powered offense that just, it seems like at any moment they can go off whenever they want, put up 35. I don't feel like the Ravens can put up 35 whenever they want. And I don't even know if the Ravens have put up 35 points this year outside of was it the Patriots or the Dolphins or something like that earlier
in the Dolphins game they lost 38-35, I think. Yeah.
So outside of that, like, they are putting up, and you got to score. We're talking Chiefs, got to score. Yeah. Bills, probably got to score. Bengals, probably going to have to score. I mean, the Bengals just put up 37 against the Steelers. So I don't know, man. It's interesting. I just, Ravens probably going to win that division, but I don't know if they're going to make the run. But I'm with you. I guess I could see them winning it.
Game script pieces scare me for the Ravens. Like, if we're looking at them as a team, and especially with how volatile Marcus Peters and players on that defense can be, somebody like, and I'm making this up, but like, tell me this doesn't sound realistic. Ravens start out and Lamar throws an interception. Peters tries to force a fumble on, quick out from a wide receiver. He misses, receiver takes to the house. You're down 7-0. Lamar and the Ravens offense gets stopped. Other team gets the ball. They go down, score a touchdown again, and now it's 14-0. And the Ravens are down 14-0. And before you even know it, it comes down to, okay, can they keep running the ball? Do they have to throw it? Do they have the firepower to come back? Like, they can put up points in bunches when they're within the game script, if they're able to keep pounding you with the ball. And I do worry about non-favorable game scripts. Granted, you can say this about anybody, but exactly to your point, like, if we're focused on the AFC North, like, if you tell me like the Bengals are down 14-0, I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. But if the Ravens are down 14-0, I have a much different feeling based on how their offenses are built. Now, on the flip side of it, with how their offenses are built, I look at a team like the Ravens, and this is a team who has always given Kansas City problems, and they gave the Bills problems a bit this year too, because of how their offense is designed. Like, if it works, you're grounding out yards and points, and you're keeping the ball away from Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and these high-powered offenses, right? So all they have to do is, if they get a couple takeaways on defense, or they get a couple of stops, and then you're in the third and fourth quarter, and that defense is torn up, and they're worn down because they've been getting run on 7 times every drive, and it's cold, and it's rainy, or whatever the hell, and it's playoff football. Like, the game script, that pendulum starts to swing in their favor a little bit. Again, with all of it, I just think there is that level of variance, not as much potentially as the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, they're built differently, but I just keep thinking, like, if they're healthy, because of how unique they are, they can either flame out, but they also have like the formula that can kind of give the top teams in the AFC problems because of their identity, which makes them so intriguing. And again, fits into like the nature of this AFC as a whole, which, so we've talked about like the top tiers. We talked about the North. We'll get to the bottom in a little bit. Let's focus on the Bills just quickly, because, Russ, you mentioned some interesting points, and we all mentioned them in that top tier. Russ, we'll start with you. Actually, let's start with this comment from DF Forever, who says, please hit the like button. Thanks. Yeah, likes are the lifeblood here on these streams. So if you are watching on YouTube and you're enjoying this, whether you're watching live or watching later, please and thank you. Drop a like. It goes a long way. Thank you very much, DF. We appreciate you. Oh, Russ, we'll start with you, because you brought it up first because you spoke first. What do you make of the Buffalo Bills right now? Like, if you're looking, if forget every other team. Well, I guess you kind of can't, because you have to put things into perspective. But if you're just looking at the Buffalo Bills right now, what do you think they are like in terms of the entire rest of the year? Like, is it as simple as, well, if Josh Allen's healthy, everything will be okay? Or are you starting to waver a little bit on who and what this team is based on what they've shown you these last several weeks?
They're about to be on upset alert this week, baby. Thursday.
Don't do that.
Give me my turkey leg. No, so yeah, I mean, I'm with you. You make a great point there. I mean, if Josh Allen's okay, I think they're okay, and I really think that's what it boils down to. I mean, I've always kind of been a fan of Devin Singletary when he was coming out of Florida Atlantic. I did a breakdown here at Cover One about him when he was coming out. He's just such a fun player. I know me and Eric talk really highly of him. And it's definitely kind of taken him a while to get going, but it just seems like when he's involved in this offense, it seems like it's better. And you saw it today. He was able to have some big runs. He's able to catch passes out of the backfield. We're starting to see Gabe Davis get utilized a little bit more. The same with Dawson Knox. So that's good. And Stephon Diggs is still going to go out and get his. So like I'm really liking the pieces that are starting to come around and how the offense is starting to unfold a little bit from a production standpoint. But again, we mentioned Josh Allen. He's the question mark. I mean, we all know, like, if he's not there, this team isn't. I'm sorry, guys, they're not going anywhere. Like, I have no faith in Case Keenum. I don't believe they're going to go out and get Cam Newton off the street and make it happen. Like, it's Josh Allen or bust for this team, which is I can't believe I'm saying that, because 4 years ago I thought the guy was terrible out coming out of college. But he was. No, it's a fact. He was very bad. Like, there's a lot of potential, but he wasn't very good. And it's hard to believe that guys like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen were able to fix some of their flaws or make their flaws like a positive in today's game.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't happen 10 years ago, and it's happening with guys like Allen and Mahomes. So I think, with Allen, obviously, where's he going to be for his long-term health? Are they able to string together a couple of wins here against Detroit, New England, New York, and Miami, where maybe he could rest against Chicago, potentially, rest against New England to end the year or something like that? I don't know if he'd necessarily, get that rest against Cincinnati, kind of a big game there. But what I know, right? But like, where is he going to be health-wise? He's got to start, resting a little bit. The 60, 70-yard bombs that we see a part of this offense, especially early in the year, it just doesn't – I don't feel like that's going to start existing until we get a true diagnosis of this elbow, of what the long-term, solution is going to be for it. Is he going to need surgery in the offseason? Is there going to be a long timetable of recovery for him? We'll see.
Stop doing this.
I'm sorry, bro. It's the truth. I hate saying it to you. Look, bro, I've been there, where there was a few years ago where Detroit was really getting in the groove when they had Ndamukong Suh, Calvin Johnson, Reggie Bush was there. They were looking pretty good. Like, okay, we're going to win a freaking playoff game, which I haven't seen since the day I was born, basically. And and he hurt his hand from Julius Peppers, who's one of my all-time favorite players, still will drive me nuts to this day. And he hit him in the hand against Chicago, and he messed up his throwing hand. He was not the same quarterback after that. And it's like, these injuries, they just linger, and it worries me. So I've been down this road. It sounds crazy, but I have been, and it worries me. But
elbows aren't important to quarterbacks, especially on their throwing arm. They don't need it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he could just do all forearm and shoulder. I mean, if that's what he wants to do.
Or throw lefty. That's easy. Just throw lefty.
Just switch it up.
Maybe he could call Phillip Rivers and learns how to shot put it or something.
Get in the lab. Get in the lab, change his motion.
That'll work. I mean, it's so, aside from Josh Allen, is there any concerns for you guys defensively with Buffalo, where they're not going to be able to stop anybody? Because regardless of the injuries, it just seems like they can make the stops when they need to. They can hold a team to 3 points when they need to. I know it seems kind of like an odd couple of weeks here, in and out of wins and losses and bad losses and odd wins and snowstorms and everything else. But defensively, it seems to be a pretty consistent unit week in and week out. And I don't think there's really been an alarming game outside of maybe Minnesota. And I don't even think we would have been having this conversation had they not fumbled the football.
That's fair. Kendall, I have an answer, but if you want, you may take the floor.
No, I already took one from you.
One that definitely concerns me, the tackling piece.
Yes,
concerns me. It reared its head a little bit again today, but in doing my prep for this week, so of boxes with 7 defenders or less, which the Bills are in 90% of the time, 58% of the time they're in a light box, 32% of the time they're in 7-man boxes. So 90% of the time they have 7 or less defenders in the box. In those scenarios, they have the highest broken tackle plus missed tackle per attempt percentage in the entire league at 16.3. And you saw that today. Granted, Poyer is playing basically with one arm, but you saw missed tackles from Poyer. You saw missed tackles from DeMar Hamlin. You saw missed tackles from Dane Jackson. You saw some from Tyrell Dodson. And granted, I think Edmonds' health and the health of the defensive players in general, once Rousseau comes back and Trey White and Kyer Elam and Tremaine Edmonds and all these pieces start to come back, I think things change a bit. But what concerns me for the defense, and it was something that we hadn't seen going into the bye week, especially even against Kansas City, like the Bills' open field tackling and tackling in the box and in the hole was very, very, very good. What we've seen coming out against Green Bay, against the Jets, against Minnesota, and again today against the Cleveland Browns, the Bills are missing tackles in these scenarios. And it concerns me from the perspective of we know what the Bills are. Over 70% of the time, they're going to be in those two high shells pre-snap. They want to play 6 or 7 defenders in the box. When you are doing that, you are already admitting somebody has to come from depth, either the second level or third level, and come from depth and fill and make a tackle and make a play, which is how you limit those 8 or 10 yard gains to 4 or 6, or that 15 or 20 yard gain, you limit it to like 8 or 10. I'm worried that the missed tackling piece that we've seen in actually, honestly, like the last couple of years under Frazier and McDermott, it's starting to rear its ugly head a little bit again. And I think it's more than just, well, when the defense gets healthy, because some of the healthy guys who will be returning are missing some of those tackles. And some of those missed tackles are due to players being put into situations that are going to continue to come up. Safeties are going to have to fill from depth. Corners are going to be asked to crack, replace, and make tackles one-on-one with running backs. You are going to get these scenarios. That worries me a bit. The run defense piece was a concern that I had, and it wasn't just because they held Chubb relatively in check today, but a lot of the struggles the Bills have had these last several weeks with the run game, some of it was just bad luck. Like you're bringing a run blitz from the right, and the team runs to the left, and it's just like, oh, crap. Like they ran away from what we did. That's bad luck. Or you would get penetration and just one guy misses the tackle. And so my thought is, okay, like those things will eventually regress towards the mean positively. But the missed tackling piece is a big issue for me. And especially as you start to move forward. And again, this isn't just like cliches or proverbial like lines. All the teams that we've talked about so far, right? Who's going to host playoff games in the AFC? The Bills, potentially, Kansas City, the Bengals, the Ravens, all these teams, I guess, aside from Miami, who has an opportunity to, but is a warmer weather team, you're most likely going to go to some place that's cold and may have snow and may have rain, or it's going to be that playoff football weather. And what do you have to do? You have to play good, sound, technical defense, and the other team you're playing against is probably going to try and run the football. And even if they don't run the football, even if you're playing in the Kansas City Chiefs again, cool. Are you going to be able to tackle Kadarius Toney in the open field? If they're finding more success in this run game with Isaiah Pacheco, is Pacheco going to run through a shoulder? Or are you going to be able to come down and drop the hammer and hold a 10 or 15 yard gain to 4 or 6 or 8? The missed tackling piece is a big concern for me on the defense. Again, we saw today, even from the guys who DeMar Hamlin has been a really sure tackler coming from depth today. He missed several, whether it was in the pass game or in the run game. So you're starting to see it again. And with how fast flowing and aggressive this defense is, it worries me that, again, when you're facing these teams that you can't give any quarter to, because there's a big difference, not to keep drilling on this point, but missing a tackle versus Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't the same as missing a tackle against Jamar Chase or Rashad 100%. Bateman or like these dudes who can fly and who are like plus matchup athletes. And so that scares me a bit. I think some of the structural and schematic pieces that are worrisome, I'm not too concerned just based on the tape study, although there is some trepidation there for me, but the missed tackling piece is definitely one for me. Kendall, what do you got?
I got two things. I mean, first thing is really getting back to the point of health. And I think a lot of it, I mean, the Josh Allen thing is definitely worrisome, but I think it's probably going to show more of itself next year, in my opinion. I think if there's something to do off-season wise with rehab, like that's going to be what sets the Bills back, and it's going to be felt more next year. That being said, I think we've seen through 2 games of him playing through this injury, we've seen some issues with grip and even like accuracy. I think you've seen it. Like you've seen him miss throws he doesn't usually miss.
And he's missing them everywhere. High, low, right, left. Like you can tell that it's just like, it's got to be something either mental or physical because he's missing everywhere.
Something is just a little bit off, but it's not affecting him to a level of like, oh, this guy's done. It's just, you can definitely tell there is something tangibly different with his accuracy. And it probably does come back to that grip strength thing. That was reported back when the initial injury happened. But then getting towards, I mean, just team wide, you even talked about it. And like on the defense, there's just so much missing right now. And sure, you can overcome that and you can kind of like steal wins with these depth players right now. But like, what happens if you have to play a better team? Like, what happens if you have to play the Dolphins with the roster we just put out today? So then you start thinking, okay, what are the issues? Is it schematic? Is it personnel based? And it's probably just personnel based. But we need to see that, and we need to see this team get to full health, at least on the defensive side, because I mean, we just haven't had it all season, especially with getting Trey White back. So time will tell on that. But like Russ said, the defense keeps holding strong, even with the depth pieces. So it'll be nice to see what it looks like when it's at full strength. The second point, and probably the most potent point, like in terms of what it's going to be towards the end of the season, it is the running game. And you talked about it in terms of defending the run. It goes the same way for actually running the football. Like you said, most home games are going to be played in cold weather when it's the playoffs, or even if there's a really late game in the season, like if that Patriots game means something week 18, if that Bengals game means something for seeding, like those games will probably have some sort of inclement weather, and you're not going to want to throw Josh Allen 50 times in that game.
Or you might not even be able to because the weather's going to be so bad.
Exactly. And then to Russ's point, like the team just looks better when Devin Singletary's doing well. And it's happened every single time Singletary's had like a touchdown and at least like 60 yards. The team just seems to be operating more efficiently. And the fact that the barometer is only 60 yards is just wild, because that's all this offense needs. It needs a traditional running game from running backs to take the pressure off of Josh Allen. And it just makes life easier for the offense, life harder for the defense, because who are they going to key in on? And it goes back to the point of this team. If Josh Allen isn't healthy, what is this team? And that's the point. There's so much pressure being put on Josh Allen to be this team, to be this offense. He is so much percentage-wise of this offense's efficiency. Finding ways to take that pressure off of him and lower that percentage and throw it onto someone else, it's only going to be better for this offense. You just need to find a way to do it efficiently. And I think mixing in Cook, Hines, Singletary, finding ways for defenses to respect that guy lining up right next to Josh Allen, not the guy wearing 17, is going to be huge for this defense moving forward and as the weather gets worse.
That's my biggest concern. Like if we're sticking to the Buffalo Bills, I recognize the struggles the defense has had in certain degrees or in certain aspects. And again, I think there are some schematic issues, like teams realizing what they can do with motion and the shifts that they can cause, and then how they can run weak side off of that, or what they can do against the Bills fronts based on using their rules against them. Like I think that is prevalent, but I think they're built and equipped enough to weather that storm. I'm more concerned about the offensive side of the ball. And Kendall, you and I discussed this in the offseason, pre-draft, post-draft, when I had you on Disguise Coverage a couple times when we did our like storylines for the season and concerns and different pieces. I'm concerned about this offensive line, and I still will be. I hate singling out players for poor performances, just because, again, like these are some of the best athletes in the world, and they're tremendous at a sport that most people probably will never be able to comprehend. But Spencer Brown is a liability to me. He is still getting beat in ways that he's getting beat in like a half a second. There was one today again. Granted, it's Myles Garrett. The completion to Diggs on like an out on second down. Myles Garrett beat Brown, and you heard everybody in the stadium go like, oh, and then Josh Allen threw it, right? And it's not just, well, okay, it's Myles Garrett. Oh, it's Danielle Hunter. No, it's also like Bryce Huff against, Quessenberry, because what happens is Spencer Brown has been injury prone so far in these couple of years. Quessenberry's the next man up. Like, are you getting beat by depth guys? Are you getting beat by stars? And even if you're getting beat by stars, I know some people want to be like, yeah, but they're getting beat by these great guys. Cool. Those are the dudes you're going to face when you're trying to get to a championship. Correct. Like if you have to play or just roll through like the teams like Cincinnati. Okay, cool. Sam Hubbard is no joke. Trey Hendrickson is definitely no joke. Karlaftis is starting to put some more things together. And we already know what Chris Jones and Clark can do up front for the Chiefs. I'm not going to go like team by team, but all of these teams have horses up front that can give you problems. You've got question marks at right tackle. Bates has been vulnerable several times in the run and the pass this year. Roger Saffold, I think, has been fine enough against the run, but we knew coming into the year that he had limitations as a pass protector, which again, I'm not making it seem like it's excusable, but dude has had like a long Ironman career in the NFL, and he's in like to his early and mid 30s. Like there's a lot of mileage on the tires. He's not built to set up and be this pass protecting monster. That's not his game. I have questions about the offensive line in pass protection and in the run game. And then tying it to Ken Dorsey, they started to do it more in the second half today. But there's just been so many things that have been missing from this offense, like under center play action or pre-snap motion or layering to their run game. Just a simple tweak of like, just send somebody in an orbit motion and try and pull or hold a weak side linebacker or an edge defender or that corner to prevent them from crashing down in your zone run. Just all these little tweaks that have been missing from this offense. And they're covered up because Josh Allen is a unicorn. Oh, your pass protection isn't good? Cool. Josh Allen's going to make a dude miss and he's going to make a play. Yeah. Oh, cool. Like, you have no running game? That's fine. Josh Allen can be your running game with QB power or with scrambles. He'll make up for it. Oh, like the other team is guarding for that? Cool. Throw it 55 times and he's going to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns and you'll be fine. He has erased so much. He has been, you know what he's been like? And this is like a comp I'm surprised we haven't made yet. What Devontae Adams was to the Packers offense. Oh, it doesn't matter what we called. I'm just going to get to the line and I see I got one-on-one with Devontae. Cool. I'm just going to throw a back shoulder or a quick little smoke screen and let him do a thing. Boom, that's it. Easy button, Devontae Adams. Easy button, Devontae Adams. The Bills now, their easy button is Josh Allen because he is the playbook. But all of a sudden, that unicorn, he's got a messed up elbow, and the elbow is tremendously important to throwing the friggin' football. And now it's starting to mess with his physical ability, but also some of his mental ability. I have questions, and I don't think it's like a crazy thing or even super negative. Like, I don't want people to see this and be like, yeah, Ken Dorsey sucks. He's a first-time OC. He's never been the play caller for a team, and he's got the keys to a Ferrari that's built to win championships like right away. I think it's understandable that he's having some growing pains or he is being figured out a little bit, or there are some areas that he's struggling in, or there is some disconnect or some sort of disjointing, but he's got to figure that crap out like in a hurry because when Josh Allen was healthy, it was cool. You could just rely on that easy button. Now he's not. A comp that I made earlier, and I really like this comp. We saw the Cowboys offense change so much when Cooper Rush was in there. They were adding elements to insulate and protect Cooper Rush. And then when Dak came back, they took some of those pieces that worked and kept it. And now Dak is succeeding even more than he was before he went down with the injury. But the Bills offense needs to do similar pieces like that because they can't just rely on Josh to be the sole focal point and drive the entire team. You have to protect him
a little bit.
Correct.
Build insurance policies.
There you go. And whether that's with Devin Singletary runs or James Cook runs or more gadget pieces for Nyheim Hines or Isaiah McKenzie or more designer plays, like designed to purposefully get one guy the ball, like instead of just always relying on Josh to come out and read it out and get from 1 to 3 in the progression and make a play and also avoid the edge rusher that's coming free off the edge because he beat somebody, or making him also have to read the blitz after he also ran for 15 yards for a first down and had to truck a linebacker. Like instead of heaping, that's too much for anybody.
It's too real what you just, like, I know you're trying to be hyperbolic, but it's
no, but I'm using examples. Like that it's all real. And like that's a lot for anyone. In week 1, when they're fresh and healthy and they're coming out of the hyperbaric chamber and everything's Gucci and they're all good, it's even more when you got a damaged wing and that wing is how you throw the football. And maybe it's also affecting your mentals a little bit because you don't feel confident in that piece. And mental health is just as important as physical health. So that's where my concerns lie. The health of Josh Allen, like you both outlined, but then I guess right and connected with that is, does Ken Dorsey have what it takes to supplement and buttress Josh Allen and cover up for him until he is able to get healthy? And then maybe they find some things that work in that way. It would be nice if the Bills it was like, you know what, cool. We'll just rely on the OC to cook some stuff up, no pun intended, and we'll get through this stretch with Josh Allen being hurt. Or you know what, cool. We'll just rely on the run game. I don't have faith in either of those. Or even just being like, it's cool. We have an offensive line. They can just protect him in the pass. No. Like all of those things are like,
we need your 75% Josh Allen to perform like at least 95%.
And that's a big question. And that's a big question going forward, like just regular season, right? So again, if we're just focusing on the Bills, if they don't get the 1 seed or get a home playoff game, whatever, cool. They're going on the road. They're probably going to be on the road for the entire playoffs. That means you're going to Miami, or you're going to Tennessee, or you're going to Baltimore, or you're going to Kansas City again in the playoffs. All places against teams that are good football teams and against teams that are no slouch. And if your road isn't easy going in there and the playbook is out on you, it's even harder come playoff time when everything's about matchups. Like if you can't start to find some semblance of an identity other than just opening the playbook and it's a fucking picture of Josh Allen, like then you got problems. Like we made that joke so much. Like the Bills playbook isn't like, oh yeah, it's a West Coast offense based on this, or like, oh yeah, it's a it's an inverted veer and based around this and we do this. No, like you open up the playbook, it's just a picture of Josh Allen like throwing. And then the second picture of the book is just him like a picture like this. That's what it is. And that's cool when that unicorn is good and healthy. But when he's not, somebody else has to step up. And it starts with the design and the architect of that offense. And it starts with the other aspects of football on the offensive side of the ball that isn't just the unicorn. And it's
contingent on the unicorn, yeah.
Scary. And it's nerve-wracking. And again, when you're going up against like the foil for the Bills will continue to be the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs until they prove otherwise. And look who they're coached by, like Andy Reid, who has had his own struggles back in Philadelphia, but he's always been a good football mind. And then on the other side of the ball, you got Steve Spagnuolo, what is he known for? His designers and his ability to put quarterbacks in a blender because of the looks he can provide. And like Russ's point earlier, a bunch of their young dudes who they had to throw in and baptize by fire early in the year, they're starting to play better. And also Trent McDuffie came back and he's starting to find a groove a little bit. And like they're starting to add these pieces who are starting to become more real. Like, it's a scary thought for the Buffalo Bills. They can't kind of put it together and find a way to win other than just being like, Josh, go do something. Go make something happen. Like that's a scary piece for the Bills.
And that's especially because like that's how it was early in the year. I mean, you remember week 1, week 2, so on and so forth. It was just whenever they wanted, they could put up major points. And now it just doesn't feel like they can. Maybe they can. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overlooking that piece. But
well, even on like today, like they put up 31 points on a day where everyone thought the offense looked like crap. So like, but again, to that point, the conversation still keeps happening. Like, man, imagine what they're going to look like when they put it all together. I think the conversation more now needs to be like, are they going to put it together? Because they haven't. Yeah. It's 11 weeks. Yeah. And you can play both sides. We were 11 weeks in, and we still haven't seen the Bills offense play a complete game of football. On the one hand, you can be like, yeah, and they're 7-3, and they could easily be like 9-1. So look at that. But on the other side, it can be like, well, why haven't they put a complete game together? What continues to hold them back?
Yeah, I mean, is there a game here down the stretch or a couple of games on their schedule where you're like, this could be where they put it all together? Or is this where like not the wheels fall off, but like they really struggle to put it all together?
For me, the struggling part is going to come that stretch of New England, the Jets, and Miami. All three teams have the ability to give the Bills problems in a variety of ways, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. You know, Miami looked like they had been cooking up that game plan for week 3. Like they've been cooking that up all summer. They threw everything, and it was tremendously impressive what they threw at Josh Allen in that game. So Miami has the potential to give the Bills problems. We've already seen what the Jets can do. The Jets defense is very real, and that front four and that back end and Robert Saleh isn't going anywhere by the time the Bills play him again. The Patriots defense is starting to feel themselves a little bit, like with what they're able to do. Matthew Judon is having another tremendous year. Also, somebody who's not getting talked about, and I don't want to get too off the rails, Kyle Duggar is sick.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Ton of ways. He is crushing it. Like, I don't want to get too off the rails, but Kyle Duggar's crushing it. You've got Belichick still there, who has the ability to, if Bill Belichick created some game plan that shut Josh Allen down, would anybody really be too surprised? I think that's the stretch right there against 3 teams that have the familiarity, but also 3 AFC teams, 3 AFC East teams. I think that's the stretch. If the Bills come out of that stretch 3-0 or anything less than 3-0 is a problem, because who did they lose to? And if they lose to any of those teams, it hurts their opportunity significantly to win the AFC East. That is the stretch where I think they prove themselves. It would be nice if they came out and absolutely piss-pounded Detroit. Sorry, Russ. But that's also a piece too. Like, Detroit's scrappy and they got some dudes. Like, I wouldn't expect a cakewalk if you're going in to play the Detroit Lions. I also wouldn't, despite the jokes about the Bears, I wouldn't expect a cakewalk against Chicago. Now that the Bears suddenly realize that if we get Justin Fields on the move, that good things can happen. Crazy shock. Who would have thought that? Like, I don't think there's any cakewalk games down the stretch, but that AFC East, that three game gauntlet is what decides the year for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was going to say it depends, like, in terms of a get-right game, like, Russ, you were asking, are we going to see that full effort, complete offensive effort from the Bills?
Yeah.
Like, depends what kind of defense, what kind of Lions defense are we going to get this week? Like, I mean, the Lions have shown so many different shades of what their defense can be and is.
Yes.
If we get the bad Lions defense, like, this is a week that we could see the Bills have a complete offensive attack. But if you get this scrappy Lions defense, then you might see some struggles, and you might see another game where you're piece working stuff together on offense. Dorsey's trying to figure out what the identity is, how to make things work more efficiently, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be a long fight through adversity, and he's just going to have to keep kind of piecing together what works best with the pieces that they have.
Yeah, and we'll probably have to do a separate show or something previewing this Lions game a little bit later this week if you guys are up for it. But I think, looking at what the Lions did today against the Giants, which I'll be honest, I was not expecting that by any means, to keep Saquon basically under wraps the entire game, essentially force the Giants to bench him so he doesn't get hurt. And the way that they kind of exposed Andrew Thomas a little bit at times and other pieces of that offensive line, like Nick Gates and stuff like that. Like, I'll have to watch the all 22 and really see it. But like, Andrew Thomas was somebody that was like second or third in Pro Football Focus as far as overall pass blocking grades.
He's been having a tremendous year. I watched a bunch of tape on him. He's had a good year.
Yeah. He hasn't given up a sack. He's only given up like 9 total pressures. Like, he has looked phenomenal. And the fact that the Lions got after it, despite him being there, and again, there's 5 total offensive linemen, so it might not just have been him, but like, it was Anzalone blitzing up the middle. Aiden Hutchinson was getting off the edge. Aleem McNeil had his way a couple times up the middle. So like, if there's any issues with Spencer Brown, like you mentioned, Roger Saffold, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Lions do and send that way to obviously force Josh outside of the pocket. I'm not like, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm not worried about Josh Allen running and getting yards through the ground. That, like, if I'm betting on that game, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm in Detroit, I'm down at the casino, which wouldn't surprise me. I did see a couple of Bills fans. I was at the casino actually on.
I was gonna say, of course you're at the casino, and of course you were betting. I knew it.
Yeah. No, I was up there at Friday, so I saw a couple of Bills fans there, and it was for an event or whatever. But
sure.
Just
I had to be there.
Yeah. Bet the mortgage, whatever. But no, like, player props wise, Josh Allen over whatever his rushing yards total, I would definitely smash that button and I would do that bet, because look at what Daniel Jones did. Look at what Justin Fields did. Those guys can create yards on their feet. That's going to happen with Josh Allen. Is he going to make all the throws like we've talked about that he's done in previous weeks? Probably not, but maybe he will. But I'm very intrigued by this game. It's a double-digit spread right now at 10. I'm curious if it goes up, if it goes down. Where are we going to be health-wise for both teams? Going to be very interesting to see that. But we did mention New England. I don't know where we're going timeline or how long we want to stretch this show out, but we have not talked about New England. And I'm really curious what this New England team does with the Vikings, the Bills, and the Cardinals coming up, because I know it was a sloppy win against the Jets, but they've beaten the Jets 2 out of the last 3 weeks. They beat the Colts, who, as we know, aren't anything to really write home about. They had a bad loss against the Bears, but like, this is a team that's starting to get Damian Harris back. They've got a thing with Jacoby. Yeah, they got Jacoby Myers. Mac Jones isn't like a world beater by any means, but he's been efficient. Like, didn't turn the football over today. I'm just really curious. Like, this defense is really good, and this is kind of like that gritty Patriot team that we've seen so many times. Is there any chance, looking at their schedule, like, are they a team that solidifies a 4 or 5 seed in the playoffs and maybe makes it really interesting in round 1?
I want to see what they do against the Bills. Like, that is a huge piece for me just because I've liked what they've done this year. Jack Jones has come out and had like a tremendous year as a rookie corner. Kyle Duggar is crushing it. Judon I think he's still leading the league in sacks, especially after today at another couple. You're getting contributions from a bunch of players up front. That running game is still real. Like, Damian Harris looked good today, like good burst, good speed, outrunning guys to the corner, getting upfield. And I still think he's the second best back in that backfield behind Ramondre Stevenson, who's sick. But either way, like, that's your 1-2 combination. Fantastic. They're starting to get Jonnu Smith involved more a little bit and to take advantage of his athleticism, which is a fun piece. I will never write off the New England Patriots. I know, like, the in fashion or in vogue thing is to like knock Belichick for, what Brady did without him and what Belichick has done since. I still believe in Belichick to a degree, and I also do like several of their players, but I need to see what they do against the Bills coming up in a couple of weeks. But again, Russ, like you mentioned, that stretch is great. So they're at Minnesota next week. They're home against the Bills. Then they're at the Cardinals, at the Raiders, home against the Bengals, home against the Dolphins, and at the Bills. They've got a real solid shot to prove themselves. Like, despite Minnesota's record, I don't really tremendously believe in the Vikings. So I think that game against Minnesota next week is very winnable. The game against Buffalo, then on a short week on a Thursday, we'll see like what that brings. That's the true test for me. I don't believe in the Cardinals. I don't believe in the Raiders. Who knows where the Bengals will be at that point? And when I say who knows, I really just mean whether or not Jamar Chase is back yet. Because that tremendously alters who they are. And then they end the year home against the Dolphins and at the Bills again. Like, I think, again, they're not similar to the Bengals because of the variance, but because of the limitations of the offense. If you told me the Patriots didn't make the playoffs, I'd buy it. If you told me they did make the playoffs and they got a wild card berth again, I'd also buy it. I think they have the capacity to beat Miami. I think they have the capacity to hang with the Bills. But I think they match up better with Miami than they do the Bills. I actually think they beat Minnesota next week, and then it's a very pivotal, important game for them on that Thursday night against the Bills.
That's shocking to me. I personally, I'm still a believer in the Vikings. I just think I'm more of a believer in the Cowboys. So, like, transitively, I wasn't all that overwhelmed by what happened today to the Vikings.
I think the Pats have the ability to get ahead of Minnesota and cause some problems, and then I think you could see bad Kirk Cousins and it spirals.
Right. No,
Not
that's fair.
This game is prime time. It's prime time. Kirk Cousins. He
Yeah,
struggles.
no, that is very fair. I didn't put that into consideration.
Gotta look at the big picture.
Yeah, no, seriously. Looking at the schedule, though, like, the way I see it is they gotta win at least 2 out of the 3 against Cardinals, Raiders, and Bengals. If they can take at least 2 out of those 3 and then potentially steal 1, maybe 2 against a combination of Vikings, Bills, Bengals, Dolphins, and then Bills again. Like, it's just a tough stretch in my eyes where I think they really have to get as much meat off the bone against those teams like the Cardinals, Raiders, and Bengals. I think Vikings is going to be a tough matchup in my opinion. And then, yeah, like Anthony said, it's really tough to forecast what they're going to totally be and what this team looks like, especially having faced they didn't face I thought they faced the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson. But once they face the Bills and a team of that caliber, and you can kind of start to give them a measuring stick type of game, ultimately, I think this team is really buoyed by the defensive efforts. I think this offense can still move the football, but they're always going to be in these games because of their defense. And then they need the offense to put them over the edge to get, obviously, more points to win the game. But
their defense held Miami in check too. They lost 20-7, but there was a defensive score for Miami, and the only touchdown they gave up, granted it still counts, but it was a big play to Waddle, like a 42-yarder. They only gave up 13 points to the Dolphins, and 7 of it came from a big play. Like, they held that Dolphins offense in check.
And my reason that I'm holding reservation, though, is because of how early in the season that was, and potentially like, okay, are the Dolphins who they are at that point in week 2? So it's like, I still think, like you said, never going to rule out the Patriots, but I don't think they're winning the division. But I do think they have a shot at the wild card. I just personally think it's a long shot because they gotta take the games that they should win, and they still have to steal some more when they're the underdog.
What do you think? Okay, so even if you said the games that they shouldn't win, so let's say they lose to Minnesota and they lose to the Bills, they're 6-6. I think I would give them a pretty good odds to beat the Cardinals. That's 7-6. The Raiders, they beat them. That's 8-6.
Yep.
Home against the Bengals, I guess that could go either way. Home against Miami could go either way. And then you're at Buffalo again to end the year. That's what, again, I think, like, if you told me they came out of that stretch and went like 5-2 or whatever, I'd be like, oh, okay. If you told me they went 2-5, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, I think those limitations on offense are real. It's going to come down to, can the defense continue to lock guys up in man coverage and be able to get pressure with Judon? And can they rely on the run game enough and play action to cover up for Mac Jones' limitations, which is an unpredictable piece to try and figure out who they're going to be down the stretch.
Yeah,
they have 4 primetime. They have 4 primetime games in a row here. That is crazy to me.
Oh, you're right. They do. At
Minnesota,
at Thursday night against the Bills, at the Cardinals, and then at the Raiders. Oh God, Patriots
At least
Raiders
they can
on
get
Sunday
used
Night
to
Football.
it.
Oh,
I guess they could flex one of those games out if they needed to.
They would only be able to flex out the Sunday night game, so it would have to be the Patriots Raiders game.
That's probably the one they would.
Oh, what's the schedule that week?
Oh boy, I don't even know.
That's crazy. I agree with you guys though.
The AFC East is wild. Both Easts. The NFC East.
Yeah.
Now with what Washington has done.
Yeah.
And what Dallas has become, and the Eagles almost lost today. Like, that's a very interesting division. The AFC East is wild. There's a ton of parity like in the NFL this year, which is something we've talked about the entire year on this show. And it's part of the reason why, again, we had this episode, making sense out of the AFC. We've done it so much on the NFC side, like who's good, who's not. Now we're at a point with the AFC. I think we know who's good, but it's trying to figure out who's better than who based on seeing what these teams are at this point after week 11 in the NFL. And it's gonna shape up tremendously. And a team that we didn't even dive into too much, but we've talked about a bunch on the show before, the Los Angeles Chargers, who I know everybody likes to make the jokes like laugh out loud Chargers. Rashawn Slater's going to come back. Joey Bosa's going to come back. Keenan Allen, I think, is going to come back, even though it's taken him longer to come back from a hamstring than it did Brian Robinson from getting shot. If those pieces come back, right, that's wild. Brian Robinson got shot and came back before Keenan Allen's hamstring healed. But I digress. If they're able to tread water, and even if they just stumble into the playoffs, but they should be healthier by that time. The Chargers, I still think, are a team. I think they're much like the Bengals. That variance is there. They could either look like the best team in the league, or they could look like absolute dog doo-doo and not be able to show up at all. But as they start to get healthier, we'll see what they do against Kansas City tonight. They're a team that I think if they get into the playoffs, I don't want to play the Chargers. Like, I don't think anybody really would. Maybe weather affects it a little bit. Like if they have to play in a high wind game or a really cold game. But Herbert's going to continue to get healthier. They live in that short game. We talked about it. Like Joe Lombardi puts a self-imposed cap on the offense, which is so dumb, but it's not as bad when you have one of the best route runners and one of the best wide receivers who can leverage space in Keenan Allen. That opens up a lot for them. And then Slater comes back, Bosa comes back. Like, that's a team that makes the bottom of the, quote unquote bottom from a standings perspective of the AFC even more murky. Like, this is just a conference that has really started to get muddied a little bit from a standings perspective. I think in the NFC, you can still make the conversation of it's muddied because we don't really know who's a good football team, although we have dove into it a lot here and kind of narrowed it down. But the AFC, continues to impress in a variety of ways. And yeah. What do you got,
my one thing with the Chargers is, I mean, as bad as it's been to this point, and I think we'll learn a lot from the game tonight, especially considering that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are active for this game tonight. I think the big thing is their schedule down the stretch. I think it's super favorable. Getting the Cardinals, Raiders, argue what you want about the Titans, Colts, Rams, and Broncos down the stretch. I mean, there are a lot of winnable games, and there is a feasible way that they could get to 12. I mean, if they win out, they get to 13 games, but I don't think they're beating the Chiefs tonight, even though they're up 7-3 right now.
But your boy, your boy, Justin Herbert,
Kendall. I've walked it back.
Whoa.
But
coward. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's what I have to do. I mean, you got to move the goalposts. Am I wrong?
That's what you do. That's how you do. That was like week 4, Kendall. I'm a different person now.
I'm
so
a
you can't really
different
hold me
person now.
accountable.
That is past Kendall. No, but I think I do still believe in the Chargers to an extent. I mean, just talent wise, like you said, they're going to be getting a lot of guys back, and then the schedule down the stretch. If they get those guys back at the right point and they get hot at the right point, they are still a dangerous team.
Which
in the
granted,
playoffs.
granted those are
get
like
to the playoffs.
Yes, and granted those are ifs. I feel like you could say that about anybody, but I feel like it's a realistic thing to say. Like if this team gets hot, you could say that about anybody, but the Chargers,
you get Bosa and Slater back in December, and then you get hot. Like those are two things that should correlate together.
Very fair. Yeah, they could make some noise. And your boy, Justin Herbert, you could be riding off into the sunset with him in your arms, as you truly, want to do and cherish, which is a possible thing. That's the proper ending for your character arc. You just riding off into the sunset with Herbert. I want that for you. I truly do. Now let's close the show with our favorite segment of the week: Player of the Week, Rookie of the Week, Drive of the Week. We'll start with Player. Kendall, you can go first.
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I really think, Amari Cooper had a great game today, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, along of 25 on his first touchdown reception, which is a great adjustment catch through contact. I mean, he's still just a great player. And I think people are forgetting that because of the team that he's on, the quarterback that's throwing to him. I think people are forgetting the nuance and the expertise and what Amari Cooper is at the wide receiver position. He is just such a well-rounded athlete that just has all of those, all of those important skill traits you need to be a wide receiver. He has it in spades. Anything you don't need, he still has it. Like he's such a well-rounded player, and he showed it again today in every facet of the wide receiver position. So just wanted to show some love his way because I do feel like a lot of people have forgotten about his existence in the league.
I showed some film of him on Disguised Coverage this past week, just as like a piece. Like, don't forget about him, and Brissett finds him, and he's good. And when he was cooking, I was like, I freaking knew it. Like,
yeah, he's still good.
He's fast. He's technical. He's smart as hell. He's got a high football IQ. Like, yeah, dude is a stud. Has been forgotten about on a bad Browns team, but yeah, he's been quality everywhere he's gone. Russ, what do you got for Player of the Week?
I'm gonna be a little biased here, but I'm gonna stick with my hometown team. And I'm gonna go. No. I'm gonna go Jamal. I'm gonna go Jamal, man. 17 carries, 64 yards, 3 touchdowns. I was such a big fan of him in 2017 when he was coming out of BYU, and I was obviously really bummed when he went to the Packers. But I always felt like he just was never given like that fair opportunity to really prove himself, kind of in that timeshare. And he's just really emerged in this offense over the last several weeks. And a lot of it's because DeAndre Swift's just not the player that we thought he was going to be. Injuries have definitely piled up, but he plays with hesitation. He doesn't see the field the same way, doesn't go north and south like the offense is designed. He tries to make the splashy plays. And Jamal Williams, he does the opposite. He goes north and south. He makes the plays happen just by running straight up the field. And he's up to 12 total touchdowns on the year on the ground, which is wild. Very LeGarrette Blount-like with the Patriots.
Nice.
Yeah. And
touchdown vulture.
he added another 65 yards to his rushing total this year. But over the last 3 weeks, he's seen 17 carries, 16 carries, 24 carries. He's had basically 12 carries or more in every game but one, and that was against Miami. And even in that game, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. So, like, he's not going to get 100 yards. He might get close. He might hover around 75. But he's just been really steady in an offense and really a team that has with a team that's needed wins. They've won 3 in a row. And I think a lot of it's because of Jamal Williams. And he is kind of the lifeblood of this team, if we're going to be honest.
He was one of the banes of my fantasy football existence with the Packers when he would just consistently take touches away from Aaron Jones, and it would drive me absolutely bonkers. But I'm very happy for him. He was a darling on Hard Knocks and has carried it onto the field this year. Passionate dude, fiery dude. Man, just keeps finding the end zone over and over and over again. Good choice for you, Russ. I also went with a wide receiver, also in the state of Ohio, and I'm going to go with T. Higgins for the Cincinnati Bengals. today. Burrow had a good day, 355 yards, 4 touchdowns. 3 of them came to Samaje Perine on some dump downs, but T. Higgins had 9 catches for 148 yards on 13 targets today. No one else had more than 7. Tyler Boyd was second in targets with 7. After Boyd, it was Perine and Trenton Irwin at 4. So it was a heavy T. Higgins game. And again, the 9 catches was first. Samaje Perine was second with 4. He also led the team in yards with 148 receiving. Samaje Perine was second with 52. Time and time again, it was Burrow finding Higgins up the sideline, on digs, on benders. He really stepped up today, and they needed him to. Like there were stretches where they were down in this game to the Steelers. TJ Watt was making plays. Hayward was making some plays. Burrow was under pressure at times. Mixon goes down with a concussion. The run game starts to struggle. It was all on Burrow's shoulders. And he was able to find some areas to work after the pressure was released a bit because of his ability to find T. Higgins. Higgins showed up big time. Like he's a high-end wide receiver too. He could be a low-end wide receiver one, but he plays second fiddle because he plays with one of the best receivers in the entire NFL in Jamar Chase, in a game that the Bengals needed to have as they continue to try and potentially win the AFC North, but just in general make the playoffs. And Russ, like you said, like with a hard stretch of games coming up, they needed this one today. Plus they were wearing those sweet, sexy all whites. Yeah. Oh, they're so beautiful. Higgins showed up in a variety of routes today against a variety of coverages, against a variety of players, really being able to be that security blanket for Joe Burrow. And he wasn't like a security blanket, like hovering around the line of scrimmage. He would be like 25 yards downfield, making plays left and right. Yeah. So he had a huge game today, and that's why he gets my player of the week. Rookie of the week. Russ, we'll start with you on this one. Who is your rookie of the week?
I'm going to go to the Thursday game with Tennessee and Green Bay. As much as I would like to say Christian Watson, I mean, he's put together 2 great weeks here. I'm going to go with Treylon Burks, and it's simply because this is, as I've mentioned, it's a very weird offense in the passing game where it doesn't seem like it really clicks, and they've needed somebody on the outside there. And Treylon Burks has kind of emerged as maybe that guy that could really start taking the top off of defenses, could do stuff underneath. I mean, his long catch of the game was 51 yards. He had 7 for 111, his best showing so far as a rookie. And if he's healthy, he certainly looks like the type of player that we thought he could very well be coming out of Arkansas. So I think that a Titans team that needs a better passing attack and certainly needs that true number 1 weapon on the outside. I think Tannehill might have found it with Burks. Maybe it was just against the bad Green Bay defense and overall bad Green Bay team. But Burks coming down the stretch here, I think, is really going to be someone to pay attention to.
Very fair. They need help at wide receiver, but he just adds such a different dynamic with his size and his speed. And if he can fill, even if he's a light version of that A.J. Brown role, like what does Tennessee want to do? They want to run the ball, and then they want to go play action and hit that big A.J. Brown type receiver on those overs in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. And Treylon Burks fits that mold. So if he can give them something, it's a huge boost to that offense. Good pick. I also went with a receiver. You're welcome. I also went with a receiver. I went with Mr. Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints today. Kind of put the game out of reach with a 53-yard touchdown. And it was a good throw from Dalton, but the separation was just there. I felt bad that he's been injured this year because I feel like it's been kind of like laugh out loud Saints for them, like the draft capital they gave up and then moving up to take him. And then the offense has kind of fallen apart a bit. But when healthy, Olave has been quality this year, snap after snap, rep after rep, no matter what quarterback he's playing with. You see the speed, you see the route polish, the separation, his ability to get vertical, but also work in the intermediate and be able to function in the middle of the field, up the sidelines. Like you're really starting to see that skill set start to take place and be able to be put on display as his game continues to evolve. And he does something in that offense that looked like it had a bunch of weapons coming into the year. And then just because of injuries and a bunch of other nonsense with the Saints, they've kind of been bereft of that lately. And they're going with Dalton, and Olave has been a reliable piece, which is huge as a rookie. And again, for a box score standpoint, finished with 5 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets. But it was more of how he continues to show his ability to win. Like he's a viable weapon, who again, I think is getting not a ton of shine because the Saints aren't getting a ton of shine. He had another good day today, and he's my rookie of the week. Kendall, what do you got for your rookie of the week?
I mean, I had a couple stolen, so I'm gonna go back to James Cook. I actually could have gone with the Detroit pair in Aiden Hutchinson and Kirby Joseph again, just creating plays. They just keep going, but I'm gonna go with James Cook. I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but it's really about what it's going to mean moving forward. We talked about the Bills' running woes and how important it's going to be to the overall offense and taking pressure off of Josh Allen. But James Cook did a lot of that today in this game. 11 carries for 86 yards, staple of efficiency, almost 8 yards per carry. But he had 3 carries for over 10 plus yards with a long of 29. And that's really the element that we're talking about that could be added to this Bills offense. Sure, Devin Singletary is a very efficient runner, but you lack that home run ability, the ability to consistently go grab explosive gains in the ground game, and Cook is that. I mean, getting 3 with a long of 29, and he had opportunities for more, a couple runs of 8 or 9 yards where it's, a little bit more contact balance, a little bit more speed to power with where you are at the point of attack, and maybe you get it over 10 yards. But I think the level of explosiveness and what he adds in terms of the element to the running game with the ability to hit the edge and just take the top off defenses, I think it's a very worthwhile thing to note moving forward for the Buffalo Bills.
Very fair. I'm very excited for that as well. Like I this isn't a knock against Devin Singletary at all. Like I said on Twitter earlier, and Kendall, you had a good follow up to that. But James Cook has earned more touches with the juice that he adds. It's very real. It changes angles, and it's an element and dynamic that not only the Bills benefit from, but I think they need. So very nice day for Mr. James Cook. And now our drive of the week. I'll lead off as we continue to go round and round. This isn't technically a drive, but I just wanted to shout it out because it was awesome. The punt return touchdown for Marcus Jones for the New England Patriots. That technically counts. Yeah, I'm going to go with it. So the Pats stopped the Jets on 3rd and 1 at the Jets 34 with 26 seconds left. And also this ties into somebody who I shouted out earlier. Zach Wilson passes. He tries to hit Michael Carter on a flat route, and Duggar just sticks him for a loss of 2, and the Jets have to punt. So you're thinking, okay, it's going to overtime. False. The Jets punt, and they kick it to Marcus Jones, who houses it for an 84-yard touchdown as the Patriots win 10-3. Marcus Jones was someone who I liked him as a corner enough because of his athleticism, his speed, his ball skills, but he's very small. He's undersized. He's not the biggest guy. It was the biggest knock on him coming out, 5'8", 185 pounds. But again, his ability to make plays on the ball, he had 9 career interceptions between his 2 years at Troy and his 2 years at Houston. But part of the reason why I liked him so much was I thought he could be an all-pro returner at the NFL level, as his floor with his speed and vision and athleticism. This is somebody who throughout his college career had 6 kick returns for touchdowns, and he had 3 punt returns for a touchdown, and he iced the game with speed and vision. This wasn't like a fluke, it was a shank kick and he took it 45 yards touchdown. This was an 84-yard punt return. He had to go the length of the field. He set up a lot of these blocks himself. He finished them. He changed angles. You saw his ability to evade tacklers. You saw his elusiveness. And again, it was a huge moment. This game should have gone to overtime, and instead he gets his hands on the ball and takes it 84 yards for a touchdown, and in essence ices the game for the Patriots, wins this game. He basically had a walk-off punt return touchdown. And as much as that game was ugly for people, I think there was some good defensive football play in this game, but there was some bad offense as well. A very exciting end to an otherwise boring game for most people. And technically it counts as a drive. It shows up actually really doesn't show up as a drive on ESPN, but I'm counting it. So Marcus Jones, 84-yard punt return touchdown was my drive of the week. Kendall, what do you got?
I got to go with the Eagles game-winning drive. I mean, they just narrowly escape that game against the Colts. I don't even know how the Colts were in it as long as they were. Credit to the Colts defense and running game for keeping the ball out of their hands. But drive started with 4 minutes and 37 seconds left in the fourth quarter. They went 11 plays and 75 yards, taking 3 minutes and 17 left, taking 3 minutes and 17 off the clock and then leaving only 1 minute and 20 left for the Colts to respond. They did a great job of utilizing their run game because Obviously, 4:37 left. You can run your 4-minute offense, try to leave as little time on the clock as possible. They forced the Colts to use 2 timeouts on the defensive possession, leaving them with 1 minute and 20 seconds left. And we know the woes in terms of what the Colts have been with Matt Ryan, or really anyone at quarterback trying to pass the football, protect for them, keep everything on schedule. It's been rough for them. To leave them with 1 minute, 20 seconds and 1 timeout. Pretty good recipe for success for the Eagles. Credit to them for escaping with the victory, but it wasn't all pretty for them.
No, it was a pretty way to end it, though. That little QB draw to Jalen Hurts untouched, just coasts in. Nice choice. Nice choice. Russ, you bring it home on this episode. What do you got for Drive of the Week?
I don't know why I keep talking about my own team, but I have no choice. I think I got to do it. I gotta ride this wave as long as I can, because
That's
like
fair.
3 weeks ago, we were 1-6. I wanted everybody fired. I wanted to run out in traffic and call it a day.
Wow.
But here we are. They're 4-6. They're in the graphic in a sense for the playoffs, and that's all I could ask them to do. And the Rams, that's all I want, right? Yeah. And the Rams suck, and we are getting a like top 6 pick right now. So it's like a win-win. But no, like starting the second half, they were up 17-6, first drive out of the half. A drive that tends to be bad for them. They just kind of go 3 and out, and it just always felt like same old Lions. But in this case today, they drove 9 plays, almost 60 yards, and ate up 5 minutes, and used a little bit of everybody. Tom Kennedy, St. Brown, Justin Jackson, Jamal Williams kind of capped it off with the 1-yard touchdown. And for a Giants defense that has been so good, we've talked highly of the Giants on this show week in and week out. For the Lions to kind of do what they did today, it just was very eye-opening for me as a football fan, obviously a fan of the team, but just as a football fan. And they were able to run the football very well, 160 yards on the ground. And I thought that drive was kind of nail-meeting coffin, and it put Daniel Jones in a circumstance or predicament, if you will, that he hasn't been in a couple of weeks. And that was forcing him to throw the football, and then he ended up turning it over some more. So he was playing mistake-free football. He had to turn it over and ended up pretty much kind of costing them the rest of the game. And that's why the Lions took this one 31-18. So give me that first drive of the second half for the Lions.
Oh, very Lions focused for you on this episode a bit, but it's understandable. The excitement is real. They've got some talent. I like what they've done in this rebuild. Kendall, you and I highlighted it earlier in the year. They got a bunch of money coming into this offseason. They have the opportunity to potentially find a quarterback in the draft for the future. Again, no disrespect to Jared Goff, but they're starting to build some things in Detroit. It'll be very interesting to see who they become as they start to move forward. And in terms of who you can become, one of the things you can become is a person who makes a bunch of money betting on sports, like Mr. Russell Brown, who, well, he loses a lot, but you never know. You have the opportunity to
settle down.
So you have the potential to win. And one of the groups that you can do that with is BetUS. And what's crazy is we have a partnership with that fantastic organization. And here's a promo talking about what you can do with that group.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between 2 exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500, or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
So if you want to try and bet your mortgage like Russ, go over to BetUS. Use that promo code COVER1. Nice, yeah. Use that promo code COVER1. 2 fantastic opportunities. But seriously, there's a lot of money to be made in the sports betting industry with how accessible it is now and all the different options that you can have with props and parlays and just the regular if you want to go straight money line or dogs and, favorites and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity. Go over to BetUS. Use those promo codes that we showed there. Reach out if you have any questions about any of that. Or if you just want to hang out and chat with us and, just make us feel better about ourselves, or if you want to hang out with Kendall and talk about Justin Herbert, the world is your oyster.
I'm always there,
folks.
I'm always there.
I'm always there. I'm always
It's
watching.
like the Batman signal.
Right? Just
Justin Herbert? Justin Herbert?
Boom. And Kendall will show up. Rumor is if you go into your bathroom, you turn the lights off, and you say Justin Herbert 3 times into the mirror, Kendall will show up.
I
Just
do
saying.
have that ability. I do.
Just
I'm not
saying.
like you normal folk out there. I can
No.
teleport.
He's a special dude. So go. I want everyone to go try that, and Kendall will show up on command. So go out and do that. But of course, do that after you drop a like on this video. If you're watching here on YouTube, please, 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 and thank you. Or if you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe to Cover One Football Weekly. Also tell your family, friends, and folks and loved ones about this show. Or if you hate this show, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day with this show. But as we, again, try to take this brand into uncharted waters, covering more of the NFL, which we will continue to do throughout this season and the playoffs and the offseason in a variety of ways, any positive or any ounce of support, whether it's, digitally or word of mouth, anything and everything goes a long way for us here on this show. We appreciate you folks for doing that. We also appreciate everybody who rode with us live on this episode. Thank you very much to Robert and Jim for the super chat donations in this episode. Thank you very much for the comments, the questions, the back and forth with one another. We greatly appreciate it. Again, if you rode with us live, thank you so much for that. If you didn't and you watched later, listened later, that's cool. We appreciate your post live view, listen, download, whatever have you. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well, staying safe. Take care of one another. Be kind to one another. Happy Thanksgiving. We hope you folks all have a good week. Be careful if you are venturing into the Black Friday waters to try and get some deals. Don't get stabbed over a TV. Don't do any stabbing over a TV.
It's just a TV.
It's just a TV. Just go into the mirror and say Justin Herbert 3 times. And if you mention a TV, Kendall will show up with the TV. It's easy. That's how I've gotten all my TVs. So be safe this Thanksgiving week. Enjoy it. Be merry and be joyful as we enter the holiday season. And for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Kendall Mirsky, for Russell Brown, who is faceless on this episode because he's dealing with house renovations, this has been another episode of Cover One Football Weekly. Godspeed, and we'll see you next week.